Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Mowing After Dark on the College Football Mafia Network here on August 10th, 2025. I am, of course, your host with the most, Moen, with the most angry DMs, angry comments. People telling me Utah fans, Florida State fans. Joined by Rock and Rant, who, by the way, is a Miami fan. If you Florida State fans want to send some hate his way, you can do that just because he's a Miami Hurricane. How you doing tonight, Rock?
Taking strays because people don't like what you're telling them about their Big Ten future, man. That's good, but I'm doing good. Other than that, catching stray dogs as well today, so it all comes back together.
Absolutely. And Rock and Rant, you can find him Wednesdays on at CFB Express on YouTube, their channel over there with Miami Flow in the general. What do you guys got going on this week?
Well, after you guys do your Big Ten thing, we'll be jumping in as well. We have some guests on that show. We actually have Callie Wake, who's the Cal fan and social media personality who did the whole video for OTT to go last year. So it'll be interesting among a few other guests for a few other teams in our roundtable. So I'll be tuning into you guys and then jumping into our show on the Big Ten also.
Sounds good. We're going to have back-to-back Big Ten shows. You'll have one here on the College Football Mafia, one on College Football Express. You're going to get a fill of Big Ten like you've never had before.
I'm already filled with the Big Ten after the last few weeks, though, to be honest.
Yes, absolutely. We're gonna give Rock a little time tonight to vent his frustrations with the Wisconsin lawsuit. The reveal on Friday from Greg Pfluger. I talked to Greg Pfluger this weekend of the list of that the Big Ten has talked to recently. Again, that does not mean that's the only four teams the Big Ten's talking to. It's just the four they've talked to recently. We'll go over a little bit of the fallout of the Tiermaker. I don't want to make a whole production about it. You can go back and watch Tiermaker. You can watch the entire live stream where I was belligerent, according to several people. And you can watch Wild Ute did a good job of cutting up and editing and stitching together and kind of compacting everything from the Tiermaker. That's its own separate video here on the channel. Before we get started tonight, if anybody wants to be so generous, you can support us financially by leaving a super chat, a super sticker, gifting a membership, or becoming a member on the College Football Mafia. Membership gets you access to special data-driven members-only videos. I think you guys will enjoy it. So definitely check that out. But let's say hello to some people who got in here first. The Big Lubbock was first legitimately this time. Legitimately first. Ryan
Big
Willie was second. Skaven Yes was ninth, but also third. So that's some kind of.
That means he's
Nebraska
sixth
math.
if you do the composite.
Yeah, that's some Nebraska math right there. Daniel Gygax says hi, everyone. Good to see you, Daniel. Joseph Kurlagon Jr., I like your Tiermaker. Notre Dame must be acquired by all means necessary. Miami, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Stanford are great additions to complete a true national conference to make me happy. And Joseph Kurlagon, before anybody shouts, he is a Notre Dame fan. He wants Notre Dame in the Big Ten.
A fan or wants Notre Dame in the Big Ten for all the good matchups, even without
It's true. Listen, Michigan, Notre Dame, Notre Dame, USC. Maybe if Miami gets added to the Big Ten, Notre Dame, Miami would be the third rivalry in that conference. I'm sure Notre Dame's going to get to set their rivals. I believe they will be given that as well. Moen, the Florida State hater, sparked this debate. LOL. Do not hate Florida State. I just think Clemson has more pros than cons when it comes to Florida State. I listed them off. Again, there are issues with Florida State that I think prevent the Big Ten from looking at them as closely as they look at Miami and the state of Florida. Tempest says, and hello, everyone. Hope everybody had a great Sunday weekend. Absolutely. Hope you did as well. C. Curtis agrees with Joseph Curligan Jr. Good to see you, C. Curtis. Bob Swanger, the Nittany Lion, is here. He says, hey, everyone. Good to see you.
What's up, Bob?
Just Nathan. Hi, Daniel. I see you, Just Nathan. Bob Swanger, you're definitely going to want to tune in on Wednesday. I'm sure we're going to talk in depth regarding Penn State. Is this the year that James Franklin breaks through? Is this the year that they maybe win it all? Caleb Ramirez is here. He says, good evening, everyone. Good to see you, Caleb. C. Curtis says, I am convinced Florida State want the Big to play and recruit nationally. Then as big schools continue to improve their coaching hires, the Big will continue to get more difficult. I think the addition of NIL has radically changed college football.
You would think a little bit, right? We'll see whether the trends in a couple of years really pan out the way it's starting to seem. But if you're not really sure if that's true, take a flight, land over in Lubbock, say hi to everybody.
Yes, and it was, again, to Texas Tech fans. I'm not disputing that Texas Tech isn't a good university. I just didn't think that they were a Big Ten university. But please leave hateful comments below. They help us in the algorithm. Michelle Weintraub's here. Member says, hey, all. Good to see you, Michelle. Hope you're having a good Sunday. CFB Mafia Show is the 31 Atlas of YouTube college football community. I don't get that reference, Greg. I'm sorry. Do you get that reference at all, Rock and Rain, or is it just?
I'm not sure if it's some sci-fi thing going over my head or some UFO thing. I'm not getting it personally.
I'd miss that.
But
one,
then
Greg.
again, I got your reference about 3, the magic number, De La Soul. So
yes, not De La Soul. It was Schoolhouse Rocks. Yes, they covered it, as did Blind Melon. Blind Melon covered 3 as a magic number as well. But hopefully on Greg's next show, he can take a look at Schoolhouse Rock and sing 3 as the magic number. Because yes, it is. Jonathan Price, good to see you. As a Rutgers fan, I submit to our big overlords and agree to whatever schools they decide to extend invitations to. Funny post on Twitter I saw. Somebody said, Paul Feinbaum had said the Big Ten acts like they invented football, and somebody tagged it with the sign at Rutgers that says the birthplace of college football.
That was pretty funny. I mean, he forgot the biggest and only achievement in Rutgers football history there.
Rutgers has been number 2 within the last 25 years. They've been ranked number 2 in the AP.
Is that a pun intended?
No. They actually, when Greg Schiano was first coaching them, they got as high as number 2 in the Greg Schiano, his first go round. They got up as high as number 2 in the college football rankings.
Imagine if I touted that there was weeks where Miami was in the top 2 or 4 in the top 25 over the last few years, from 17 and last year. Everybody would come back and still dunk on me for saying that.
I'm just saying, Rutgers is not always a cellar dweller. There's times we allowed them to come up into the living room. That was before they were in the Big Ten, by the way. That was in the Big.
Yes, Schiano's a good coach. He's got a good coaching tree too.
I agree. I like Greg Schiano. LSU versus Week 1, Georgia versus driving incidents. Which rivalry is better? Boy, those Bulldogs. You would think at some point you would get the idea not to. Curtis likes the Hard Rock behind you. Yeah, I heard from a lot of people that Miami does not have their own stadium. I'd say that's still a pretty damn impressive stadium. Um, I think you're muted, Rock.
It's good because I just finished telling a bunch of people to go do something with themselves right there, so it was good with the mute. I think it's pretty impressive that everybody wants to like talk about Miami Stadium as the entire college football world tries to get to Miami Stadium for the college football playoff final game this year, and possibly have to use Miami's actual locker room as one of the two teams. They would get one of those two if it's not Miami there. But yeah, the stadium is definitely a problem. It's clearly horrible.
It's terrible. I mean, come on. Can't wait to see Ohio State win back-to-back national championships in that stadium. Shonsky just says nope.
That
Fair
sounds
enough.
like Shonsky. It's definitely
Sounds
him.
like
He did not get
Shonsky.
hacked.
Absolutely. Philport 76 says, hi everyone. Finally made it back online for a live stream. Good to see you, Philport. Thank you for stopping in here. Well, we'll see if that'll pop up. TRS, college games, just 3 weeks and counting.
It's not even
summer discussions. I hear you, man.
It's 13. It's less than 3 weeks.
Start. Yeah.
13 days from yesterday, or 13 days from today, 14 days from yesterday.
Absolutely. I'm ready for the season to start. And if you go back and watch my blueprint to fix college football, it would be started already. This would be the week. This past weekend would have been the first weekend of the college football season. Y'all just don't like being hit by flying tortillas. I'll eat them. I mean, it don't bother me at all as long as they're edible. Players don't want to play in the cold weather, especially players from the South. Some will, but the majority is staying in the South. Where's you might know this, Rock. Where's Jeremiah Smith from?
I think he's from South Florida, and I hear he's up somewhere north of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah, and it gets cold here. So the idea that Southern players don't want to come play in the cold, there's lots of Southern players in the Big Ten. There's lots of Southern players in the Big 12 that play in cold states. So, I mean, Denver. Cranky Tiger says way over my head too. Okay, fair enough. Moen correct. Texas Tech is not a big university. Again, doesn't mean it's not a good university. Just not a great location. It's not up to the level of Big Ten universities. Just in my opinion. I will ask you, Rock. Rock, do you think that Texas Tech is a Big Ten university?
From the criteria that I've unfortunately become way too familiar with, I don't necessarily think so. If and when, however, somehow that changes, it would be a great school to get the Big Ten or into the state of Texas of the available schools. But I don't think that it matches up with the parameters we've been told about repeatedly for the last few years.
OPD Don says the comment from outside the solar system that some professor from some big university saying it could be an alien aircraft claim is that alien aircraft. I think that's what Atlas 13 is. So apparently the community here, we are like the comet that is entering the solar system that a scientist believes is an alien spacecraft. If they have any sense at all, they will stay clear away from this planet, away from these people. Just do a flyby, wave, move on. Philport says anything that annoys Paul Feinbaum is okay with me. Me too. I just thought it was funny The comment, they act like they invented college football, and Rutgers is literally the birthplace of college football.
I mean, that was just awesome. I don't really have anything to say other than bravo, Paul, for giving everybody the easiest dunk in recent history.
Absolutely. Tom Dubay says, is Uber not a thing in Athens? Common sense seems to not be a thing in Athens. How many times can you guys get busted for speeding? I think the University of Georgia should invest in a racetrack.
Then they do. They just call it Main Street.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just give them a separate racetrack where they can do drag racing or run a couple laps. I don't know. Jason Spangler, the Jayhawk, is here. He says, "Sup, fellas? Good to see you, Jason." He says, Rant is pissed. He's best this way. Okay, Rant, we'll go ahead. We'll stop the comments there. I'll let you do whatever you want to do. You want to rant about the Wisconsin-Miami thing, the lawsuit thing, whatever. You have carte blanche.
I'm not even pissed. I think it's kind of, I just hate abject hypocrisy about stuff. That's like my biggest issue. My anger was more about people taking Greg's email, whoever's email, and last week's lock to the Big Ten is now suddenly off the list and is going to the Southwestern Conference or the Big 8 or the G20, Division III, the Premier League in Europe, whatever it might be, over one player. And that's fundamental thing is what's going to make $1 billion decision one way or the other down the road. In terms of the Xavier Lucas Miami lawsuit, if you missed it on Friday, Ross Dellinger reported after earlier reports earlier in the day from Pete Nakos and Brett McMurphy that Miami had responded to the lawsuit. Ross Dellinger showed, I think, 3 or 4 pages of their response. A couple of things I'm not necessarily sure about. I thought that it was possible that either Friday or Monday, Friday being a good news dump, was when Miami was required to respond to the initial lawsuit. I've heard from other people that that was actually potentially a few more weeks away because of just the way Wisconsin law works and some amending things that were done to the initial submission. So they just wanted to get it. It seems like either way they wanted to get out of the way, whether Friday was the deadline or if it was a little bit later, but Friday was a good day to get rid of it. But so far we haven't actually seen it in the Wisconsin system, right? So all we're really going off of is 3 pages of whatever Ross Dellinger had of how many pages yet to come, whether that's because there were what was an intentional leak to the press, whether Wisconsin took too long to update their systems, whether it was impacted by flooding and the weather in Wisconsin, I don't know. But, basically the long story short of it, so we don't bore everyone to tears with legal stuff on a Sunday night, Miami's basically saying at least a few things. One being, none of this happened in Wisconsin, so the case shouldn't be in Wisconsin. Just because we do academic, we do admissions for Wisconsin students doesn't mean we're doing business in Wisconsin. So you can't use that to come after us on an athletics-related issue. Secondarily, we didn't do it, but even if we did it, all of the things you're alleging happened in Florida. Miami did specifically really adamantly push back that any Miami representatives met with Xavier Lucas before they would have been allowed to do so in such concrete language that people have told me there's literally no way the General Counsel of Miami would let that be in the response if they didn't have concrete evidence to back up their claims that whatever Wisconsin believes because of some supposed relative telling them that they met, Miami has probably all they need to refute that in a significant way. And it all comes down to the one thing we talked about a lot, is that there was no enforceable contract because the House settlement wasn't done. So you can't say that there was a contract you violated or interfere with the contract because there was no contract. At best, it was a memo of understanding, which is essentially what we had all discussed a couple months back. That would be the case. So we'll see what happens. If this all turns into the thing that somehow blocks Miami from going to the Big Ten, I would still be pretty surprised. It just happened to coincide with that letter and the information that you might have had as well, and juxtaposed into the I'm sort of over all of this. Let's play football.
Let me ask you a question, though. As a Miami fan, you're a Miami fan. Would you rather see this settled, or would you rather see Miami go scorched earth? Because we talked on the phone the other day, and you had mentioned that Miami's tired of getting blamed for something that everybody does. So as a Miami fan, would you prefer a settlement where, hey, Wisconsin, Miami agree on either a figure or something along those lines, or would you prefer actually seeing your team Miami go full scorched earth?
I don't think they're going for scorched earth. They literally have no choice but to respond to the lawsuit, right? And even if they were trying to do settlements in the background and maybe were making progress, they still actually do have to respond to the court. And if you're going to respond to the court, you're going to tell them the things that, like, hey, like, this case doesn't, in our view, and Miami has good lawyers on this case without going into detail, with people who actually know Wisconsin law as well. You're going to respond to the things and say, like, hey, this shouldn't even belong there. Like, we don't think we did anything. But even if you do the thing that you do in a motion to dismiss, look, let's assume we did something, it still shouldn't be there because none of this action actually took there. And the contract doesn't really exist because of all these things. So you still have to respond to it. So, like, I don't think Miami, in the paperwork that was filed with that Ross Dellinger reported, at least the things we've seen, we haven't seen the rest of it. So I hold that could be a lot more, and they could have gone scorched earth. I think they just, more matter of fact, responded on the easiest way to, like, get this out of Wisconsin and maybe have it pushed aside. I don't think anybody ever, period, should ever settle for something if you actually believe you did nothing wrong. I do believe that a school that also happened to be has a show cause and had 9 people put on probation or whatever that was from the coaching staff for impermissible contact, plus receipts I'm fairly certain that Miami has about Tyler Van Dyke the year before, probably shouldn't have been the poster child for this lawsuit. And I'm glad that Miami hasn't sued anybody else who basically has done the same, has had players taken under, let's just say, questionable timing, and nobody else has sued anybody else. So, part of me wants them to go scorched earth, but not necessarily in this case. But I also don't think you need to just give in if you don't think you've actually done anything wrong, and if the evidence doesn't prove that you've done anything wrong. And I thought the evidence to begin with was really bad. And I think the Big Ten and the Wisconsin specifically made a major mistake of trying to make this specific case the contract proving issue, because they just should have waited to put those contracts out the hour after the House settlement was approved.
Fair enough. And just since you're already revved up, I got this comment highlighted from Mr. E Man. Mystery Man. Miami fans are only online. And most are only fans because they got a Miami starters jacket in the 1990s.
I can't say what I'm going to say, but it begins with a G, has a little F, and then a Y after it.
And starter jackets were cool in the 90s. I don't know what I don't want you to be ragging on starter jackets and Zubas, because I had a starter jacket and Zubas.
That kind of crap I don't really take very well. So, like, if you want to get me riled, I'll keep throwing those comments up.
Moen, have you played NCAA 26 yet? I have, and I think it's a waste of money. It's typical Electronics Arts fashion. It's the same game as last year with a couple new cosmetics added in.
And $100 extra to pay for.
And $100 extra to pay for it. I think if you've got NCAA 25, you're fine. I don't think the new things that they've added are worth anything. And I still have an issue. They have not fixed marching band uniforms yet. They are still just these weird hoodie type shirts that marching bands wear. That's not what marching bands look like. If you're going to spend all that money to license Enter Sandman for Virginia Tech, you spend a little money to make the Ohio State marching band look correct.
Yeah, you got some ground there to complain. One thing I will say is the Miami band is pretty embarrassing size wise, so therefore the sound doesn't really work. You guys have a legendary band; they should look good if you're going to talk about all the pageantry of college football.
They should look accurate, and that's my problem. Is it's just that they made them look a little better from last year, but it's still the same base shirt. It doesn't. You don't get the march onto the field for across the field at the beginning of the game. You just see the band in screwed up uniforms. But gameplay's not different very much at all. Still the same thing. Yeah.
Hey, at least it's not being run by Jim Phillips in the ACC, and you would have had the Ohio State dot in the I with a guy playing the flute.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. You don't even get to see Script Ohio in the game. That's one of the annoying things. You don't.
One of the things you think they would actually add for sure out of all of the bands in it.
But they'll play, Metallica, a few million to get Enter Sandman. Jason Spangler says it's not the cold weather, it's the girls. Just depends on what kind of girls you like. Are there any interconference rivalries would you like to be established between the SEC and Big Ten? Are we talking pre-expansion or post-expansion? That's going to be my main question, because there's really not. Illinois, Missouri, that's a bit of a rivalry. There's
I would
really
just like a couple of the OGs, like the biggest legends in both conferences play. Like regardless of whether there was history, you could create history really fast, right? If Ohio State and Alabama were paired off all the time, that would be great, right? From no matter what the history is or is not, and I certainly don't know the history of how many times that game has happened in any way.
Yeah, I mean, those would be good. Ohio State already does that to some extent. We've got Texas the next 2 years, and then I believe we have Georgia, and then we have Alabama for a home and away. So Ohio State does schedule tough competition. I just think it would be better if, let's say, Florida State gets into the SEC, Miami gets into the Big Ten. There you go. That's an interconference rivalry. Georgia Tech gets in the Big Ten. Georgia Tech becomes an interconference rivalry. Let's say Virginia gets in the Big Ten and North Carolina goes to the SEC. That's an interconference rivalry. But there's really just not a lot of history. Illinois, Missouri is probably the closest with the amount of history between Big Ten teams and SEC teams.
But that doesn't necessarily have like national appeal, right? Do you think it would get people in the Big Ten excited even? Would Illinois and Missouri be excited to have that game happen all the time?
Illinois and Mizzou would probably enjoy it. I think it's a good matchup too. I mean, Mizzou is kind of a mid-tier SEC program. They have their good seasons. Indiana, I think, or Illinois is the same way. Since Brett Bielema got there, they have their good seasons. I think this year, Illinois is making the playoffs. I don't know, but there's just I like my rivalries to have some kind of historic context. You know what I mean? Like if Kansas for some reason joined the Big Ten, I'd like to have Kansas Mizzou back.
Yeah, and Coy is saying it in the chat as we're going through, but bringing up like Nebraska and Oklahoma.
Nebraska, Oklahoma would be another perfect example of a SEC Big Ten rivalry. That would be the perfect example, as a matter of fact. That's probably the closest. I forgot about that one. Ohio State, Texas, you might be able to make something there. Definitely could.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't bring up Nebraska, Oklahoma, because I was just reading to be established, as in like new ones.
Yeah, Ohio State,
But
Texas have played quite a bit, and it's had national championship implications a couple times. So definitely something that, you know, take into account. I didn't bother getting college football this season. I have last year's, and I'm really up to it. I'll play NCAA 2K1 on Dreamcast. Oh boy, that's a throwback. Texas Tech has all but committed to 2027 5-star offensive lineman out of Oklahoma to go with the number 15 or number 1 5-star DL commit out of Georgia. Not disagreeing with you. Texas Tech is paying money. They're getting out there. I don't know if you guys followed any of Greg's stuff this weekend. One of the guys, I believe it was from On3 or from Rivals, got a hold of a PowerPoint presentation that the AD for Virginia Tech was going to do, or is going to do, unless he changes it now. It talks about trifurcation, which is basically a best of the rest ACC, the best from the Big 12 and the best of the ACC leftovers getting together and forming a third power conference. Maybe Texas Tech is going all out, and they want to make sure that they're included in that if that is a distinct possibility.
Yeah, I mean, listen, depending upon how certain dominoes fall, I think it's probably more likely that it's not the Big 12 absorbing a few teams out of the ACC. I think it's probably the best of the best coming together and raising the floor.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but again, we're going to have to see how it happens. Does the Big 10 go to 20? I think the Big 10 is going to 22, with the possibility of going to 24 down the line. And I think we're going to get an 11-team West Coast division and an 11-team East Coast division.
24 is just the interesting one, right? Because 24 gives the Big 10 flexibility if they chose to add more, to even dive into the Big 12 if they wanted to. You can make a rational conversation about a Colorado and Arizona State, AAU schools, football investment in Colorado continues. This obviously the Stanford Cal world. There's a massive difference in 24 versus 22, even I think in who comes into the mix possibly. I won't say Kansas because I know somebody is going to be offended if I say Kansas, but like in another world, Kansas would be somebody they would probably want to look at.
Potentially, but I think if you're going to 24, you've got to add 2 West Coast teams. You got to have a 6 division West Coast division, and I don't, Kansas isn't going to fit in that.
Or you could do 3-8, you could do 3 8-team divisions.
Oh, that's true too. I didn't, you could definitely do that.
And then you just do like, the NFL, where it's, once you get to the 4th team for any sort of playoff thing, it just goes by other record stuff, tiebreaker kind of things.
Yeah, you're going to do, so I would assume if you were doing a 3-8 team, you would have Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska over there. Well, if you're adding Kansas, though, that's an interesting concept. I don't know. Maybe we'll do that one Sunday. We'll just break that down.
Yeah, because like I think that, yes, I know that means you're only playing 7 conference games, but you're still playing. You play only 7 division games, right? But you're still getting at least 2 out of division games, right? You're still playing 9, potentially more if you want. You're still theoretically doing that SEC thing. And no matter which way you do it, whether you're doing 2 11-team divisions, 4 6-team divisions, 3 8-team divisions, at some point, depending upon what happens in terms of playing games and stuff, you're going to have some archaic, weird tiebreakers screwing up everything to decide who's going to get there, because you're going to have a bunch of teams that a certain shared record.
Absolutely. That's an interesting thought experiment. We may have to do that one day, one Sunday, figure that out. I think that'd be very interesting. Hummus Hero says Ryan Day is the best college football coach currently in the game. Kirby Smart is the best NHRA crew chief. Okay, well played. Whoops.
At least give them like NASCAR, not NHRA.
NHRA is drag racing though, right? Isn't that what they got busted? That unfortunate incident was due to street racing. Big Ten propaganda, of course. Big Ten, make sure when you send that check this month, make sure you put a couple extra zeros on it. I would appreciate it. You guys can more than afford it. Coy sounds good to me. I would like to see LSU versus Michigan because they never played before. That's an interesting statistic, Joseph Kurlagon Jr. I did not know that LSU and Michigan have never played a game before. Also, you've got the Les Miles coming to Michigan, not coming to Michigan history there with Kirk Herbstreit. That could work. Could work. I like it. USC versus South Carolina. Who's a true USC? There you go. Grateful Trojan says the Canes are still Big Ten bound.
Yeah, with all of our no attendance and no market and no nothing. And our starter jackets and any other racial overtones anyone wants to throw out.
Zubas. Come on. Did you have a pair of Zubas when you were a kid rocking Rant?
I honestly don't know what those were. I did have some weird pair of I totally have no idea. I do remember having a weird pair of shoes that like made me be conscious of sneakers at one point, and I became fashion aware. But I don't know what they were. Whatever you're talking about. The only thing I remember like a brand was like getting Converse, All Stars.
Yeah, I have to get a picture of some Miami Hurricane Zubas up here to show, just so we can see if he had a pair. Paul Feinbaum just made his Tennessee education look very, very bad by his emotional and ignorant statement regarding CFB. That's every statement Paul Feinbaum makes.
It's also half of the comments on Twitter in general, and sometimes in chats of many shows.
Tom Dubé says, how about Miami is a lock for the Big Ten, and now the handful of schools in that document are being assessed for additional schools? Could be right, Tom. I mean, that's very possible. Listen, I think the Big Ten is talking to everybody. I think the SEC is talking to everybody. Everybody's talking to everybody trying to figure this out. But it's going to happen. The ACC is going to be rated by both power conferences. So well, we wouldn't have wanted to burn it down if they didn't want to screw us every year. I assume you're talking about the SEC or the ACC. And I agree with you, by the way, Tempest. Rant, Rock, do you want to rant on the ACC?
I mean, it's kind of like hitting like an injured animal on the side of the road. It's pointless at this point. You just want to move on and get on with your life.
Fair enough.
Jim Phillips is just Jim Phillips, He's the fourth place guy in a 3-team race.
Kerry Goodall says players like the money. Don't disagree with you at all, Kerry, by the way. I think there's going to be guys who stay for their senior year just because they're going to be making more money playing in college football than they would on a rookie NFL contract. At least the first year of a rookie NFL contract.
The thing that's going to be interesting is just how does it play out with the less glamour positions in cities and schools where maybe the name, image, and likeness issues aren't the opportunities are not as big if we find the clearinghouse rejecting things because of situations like that, which we don't really have any clue on, because they can't just do it. You can't keep paying everybody if it's just about the revenue share that you're trying to spread out. You have to be able to deliver NIL deals to those premier players, or at a certain point, you're going to have a very top heavy roster, and you can get away with that in the NBA, but you can't get away with only playing like 4 players at premium dollars on your team and having the rest of the team starving.
Right, and we still haven't got NIL figured out. So until we get some kind of collective bargaining agreement that sorts out NIL, I don't think there's ever going to be a cap on it. I don't think that's going to affect anybody. Jason Spangler says, nice hat, Moen. Looks good on you. Thank you. I defended Kansas vigorously on Friday, and I was told I was belligerent and drunk for doing so. But again, Kansas, blue blood basketball program, very culturally similar to Big Ten schools like Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois. I stand by it. Good to see you around, Carrie Gonos. I haven't seen you around here lately. Dante's Inferno Purgatory. How is that for a literary reference here on Moen After Dark?
It's pretty
how
solid.
is it Florida politics? Here is the lowdown. Florida and FSU are public universities under the jurisdiction of the Florida Board of Governors. Miami is a private school, absolutely, and this is a point that I have made. It's not a conservative liberal issue, guys. It is government overreach. Very conservative states in Big Ten country did not like what happened with the Santa Ono situation. They believe that a university should have self-determination. It already has a politically appointed board of governors for the university itself. They voted unanimously to make Santa Ono their next president, only for the state to come in and say no. That is upsetting to some people in the Big Ten, and it's understandably so. They view it as government overreach.
Yeah, you don't want politicians, whatever they are, interfering with minute aspects of a university. It is not a good idea.
Yeah, it's again, and that's not a conservative liberal issue. There's, people on both sides did not like that. Nisai 912. I don't think I've ever seen you around here before, Nisai. If you're new to the channel, make sure you give us a like, a subscribe. Those help us out tremendously in the algorithm. We do multiple live shows a week. We usually have multiple videos coming out a week, so it's definitely something you should do. Subscribe if you're watching us over on X for the first time. I see there's 169 of you. That's a lucky number. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well. Run over here to YouTube at the CFB Mafia. Give us a subscribe at CFB, the letter X Press. Give Rock and Ranch channel a subscribe. That's our sister channel. Make sure you guys are subbing to that as well. A lot of great content on there.
Appreciate that. And for everyone who's watching this channel, I was just going to say, if you're watching over on X, I know it's a little bit of a pain, but X doesn't really pay any of the guys who put all their costs to do these shows, and there are costs for it, and you can't be part of the chat. So it's always great to any of your creative friends that you watch, no matter what content it is, to join them on a platform like YouTube or Twitch, where there's a little bit more of a way for them to get the benefit out of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, can't afford to pay us for viewers on X. Tough time, hey, it's tough times for everybody out there. Iowa State is undervalued, very engaged fans, great attendance in all sports. Budget is in the top 40. I love Iowa State. I love what Iowa State is planning. I've seen that little, I forget what they call it, the little center that they're planning on building around Iowa State University. I love that. I think their coach is probably the greatest value coach in college football. The price they get, they give him his contract so he can pay his coaches, his assistant coaches more. he has produced some great talent. Brock Purdy, obviously in the NFL. After San Francisco spent 3 first-round picks to go get Trey Lance, only to have Brock Purdy, who I believe was a 6th-round pick, become the starter, and they ended up trading Trey Lance, I believe, for a 6th-round pick. Yeah, Matt Campbell does fantastic things there at Iowa State. Unfortunately for Iowa State, I don't think they're an expansion candidate. I don't think Iowa Hawkeyes would allow it, and they do have a pretty big voice in the Big Ten. But yeah, I love Iowa State. I've got them high in my Big 12 list this year.
Great program. I do wish, and it's a catch-22. I do wish their athletic director, from an outsider, I wish they weren't talking about the financial challenges as much. Though I also understand that there might be a reason to do that. It just doesn't help. I don't know if it helps you if you're on the recruiting trail for people to not think you have money. I think that there definitely are challenges, but there's been a lot of conversation that's been public that the athletic director has had to say, and I don't think he's wrong for talking about it. I just wish there was a way for them to get what they need and make the people that they need to influence to donate more or to do more at the state level to support the program without them having to sort of be out there with it just for the sake of the program. But 13 days to Iowa State and Kansas State and Ireland, man.
Absolutely. We got a $5 super chat from our friend Ryan Willie. Good to see you, Ryan. I'd like Notre Dame, Duke, Arizona State, Georgia Tech, Kansas, and Stanford. Those are an interesting list, Ryan. That is a very eclectic list, if I may say so. The only comment I would make on it, and I don't know if you saw this or not, Rock and Rant, but I can't remember the guy's name from Stanford. Andrew Luck and the GM GM Ron Rivera, I think that's what they're calling him, had a little thing this weekend. They said Stanford and Cal are joined at the hip. You can't have one without the other. So we're probably going to have to lose on that list ASU for Cal if that was the case. But then Stanford would have to agree to leave the Ivy Public Library Confederation, which they already said they wouldn't. So I think that's going to be a tough get. You would have to get, I believe if you can get Duke to leave the IPLC, you could probably get Stanford to leave the IPLC.
I have a hard time reading what's going on with Stanford, right? And again, not about politics, but clearly there's interesting things going on in the world of education when it comes to grants and government funding for programs. But there's no measure that Stanford isn't the richest university endowment-wise. I believe they're even ahead of Harvard. I could be wrong on that, but they're if they're in the top 3, right? At the worst case, $1 gazillion. And yes, a lot of that money is specifically driven towards a certain thing, right? You can't just take money for the medical school and give it to the swimming team, but a lot of it is not. And they still had 30 layoffs in the athletic department announced recently. That is impacting, perhaps their amazing Olympic sports program. And I just don't understand, even with all of those challenges, why that school would have to absorb those kind of losses, even if you're trying to adapt to revenue sharing, because it's just rounding errors for them. They have so much money, even under duress, even if you're questioning the future of the economy over the next certain amount of time. I don't get it.
I do like Notre Dame. Boy, I mean, I like Georgia Tech. I like Duke. But if Duke is willing to pay their own way, and we can distribute that money along for other teams in the Big Ten, I think that's going to go a long way for Duke versus Georgia Tech. But that's a good list, Ryan. I just think you have to take into account that Stanford and Cal are quote unquote joined at the hip.
Yeah, I personally hate that list, but I understand why Ryan's list looks that way.
Thank you for that, Ryan. I will go ahead and a little applause. The soundboard is charging at the moment. I had to plug in my Bluetooth headphones so I could mode this weekend. Charlie Casado. Good to see you, Charlie. Been watching U.S. gymnastics tourney. Sad schools are cutting these sports. That's the downside of making sure that football players get paid. It is. That money, that 20.5 million, 22 million, depending on what fact and figure you want to use, that money was previously spent on going to funding those types of sports.
Yeah, and the flip side is the United States and our Olympic Committee have been able to ride off of the funding for the athletic departments at the university level that was propelled by football. So there's a lot of finger pointing and blames to go around. Either way, it would be tragic for us to lose those sports across the board on the Olympics and not have the right funding to keep those programs viable in whatever way needs to happen to support the Olympic movement and just those sports as part of like the culture and fabric of the country and universities.
I absolutely agree, 100%. Especially when you realize how many kids have received educations free of charge by being a member of an Olympic sport. So it's unfortunate, but I don't know if there's anything we can do right now. I had mentioned it on my blueprint of fixing college football a week or two back. Having, when we do a collective bargaining agreement, having something set aside to make sure that those kinds of sports and those kind of kids could get an education. So, but we'll see. I completely understand why it's heading that way. I had a Bengals starter coat. My mom was worried I was going to get robbed and told me only to wear it to church. Hummus Hero, I am a Bengals fan myself. Apparently, you wearing it to church did not help the team at all. I don't know what years you were wearing it, but I've got a feeling it was at the end of the Sam Weish era into, the multiple terrible coaches we had between Shula and all those people and Achilles Smith and Kajana Carter and I don't know, maybe you should have rubbed some holy water on it or something, but yeah, I got to find a picture of some Miami Zubas for Rock and Rant. But
it's probably one of those things like once you show me the picture, I'll know it, but I just don't remember the association.
It is. They made a brief comeback here in the last couple years. Let me see if I can find a picture for you. Zubas, Miami Hurricanes. Apparently they still exist as a company too. If you want to go that route.
Do they do new drops every week on Twitter?
I don't know, but they exist as a company. Jesus, apparently old school Zubas have some money value with them too. I wish I'd saved mine, but here, let me see if I can save this picture. Save image as. I hate it when you do a WebP image. Damn you, Firefox. But I've got a solution to that. Put that up here. And you can experience the joy of Zubas. Share an image file on my desktop of Zubas. And for anybody who doesn't remember the 90s and what a magical time that was, those are Zubas. They were parachute pants with sweatpants. But there you go. That's a pair of University of Miami Zubas.
Yeah, I definitely did not have those.
It was definitely a fashion choice in there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I did not wear those, and I did not wear University of Florida jorts.
Interesting side note on that. The Road Warriors were actually some of the original investors in Zubas. Hawk and Animal. Iowa State has a bigger enrollment than Iowa and is close to DSM, which is the Midwest's fastest growing metro. I hear you, but Iowa is not going to allow Iowa State into the same conference as them. Similar to, I don't think Penn State would ever allow Pitt into the Big Ten, even though Pitt checks a bunch of markers for the Big Ten. Yes, this is true. Iowa State was an AAU member, but they left before they were expelled. Guys, we've got about 15 to 20 more minutes here on the show for the evening. If anything, I'm going to start looking for members' comments as much as possible. If there's something you absolutely, positively has to be read, it's going to have to be a super chat, guys. We got way too many chats tonight. I want to thank everybody who's come in here and join us. Again, if you're watching us on X, consider coming over to YouTube, giving us a like, giving us a subscribe. This help us in the algorithm so much, and it is much appreciated.
Hey, Mo, we were talking about it earlier, but the subject of tonight, which teams or schools besides Florida State fans gave you the most grief about your Friday tiers rankings?
Utah.
Who else was really?
Utah. And I'm going to explain this to you, and I don't understand it. Utah fans somehow believe they're above Kansas. And they're like, we have one of the fastest growing state. They do, but it's all in Salt Lake City, or the majority of it's in Salt Lake City. And I get that Utah, since Urban Meyer took over there, he gave you that perfect season. You have that Sugar Bowl win over Alabama. You guys have been to a couple Rose Bowls. It doesn't outweigh the fact that Kansas has a blue blood basketball program.
The bluest of blue bloods.
The bluest of blue bloods.
So blue it took over their logo.
Yes. It doesn't. And I get that football drives the revenue, but Utah's only been, in the last, 25 years? Have they really been a football relevant? And Kansas has 125 years of a blue blood basketball program. I mean, are we supposed to just discount that?
You can, especially since we're now seeing, as the revenue share goes out, right, that a lot of the programs are basically allocating 25% of revenue share towards their basketball programs. So if you're a school like Kansas, and yes, maybe they're not the biggest driving force in a given year on the football side, so the renovation of their stadium looks freaking awesome. From the pictures I saw, it looks so good. So shout out to them for doing that, and I hope it's as good of an experience for the Kansas fans and visiting fans that are going to go there this season. But if 25% of the revenue share is there, when you can make an extrapolation that it applies to the media, and you're a school that way over indexes on your percentage of that nationally, it makes up for a lot of whatever people think they might not be necessarily historically on the football side of the equation.
Yeah, and I love that end zone pattern that Kansas has put in the new stadium.
So smart.
I'm trying to see if I can find it, but just the wheat field in the that's not a good image of it. I'll have to see if Vox Quindaro has it still. But yeah, that wheat field in the end zone, I love that. To me, that's just, I think Kansas, and they signed Lance Leopold to a big extension, so they're investing in football. But yeah, I'm big on. Ryan Willie says Bama versus Michigan. I wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah, it's just automatically a sexy matchup, right?
Yeah. Jason Spangler wants to know, does Miami play Florida every year?
We do not play Florida every year because Florida canceled the series that was every year way back in the late 80s when the SEC added an additional conference game at the time. So it tends to come up every 5 to 10 years back-to-back games. That is and was a Florida decision. I guarantee you, if Florida said tomorrow that, let's say Florida State went to the SEC and became an in-conference matchup, let's take up that out-of-conference spot, we'll do with you every year, I guarantee that they would say yes, and I guarantee you that Florida would not do it.
Mo and Rock Daniel, and you are my 4 favorites. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Stormy.
Appreciate it, Stormy.
Appreciate that, sir. That reminds me, those Stormy Cyclone, I don't have the soundboard up. I let it die, unfortunately. I forgot to recharge it. This is for Charlie Casado. I know he's a Jayhawk fan. And for Stormy Cyclone, I don't have anything other than this smiling, happy fellow to show you. I do not have the ISU plate. That is for the big freaking Friday show, but definitely can show you the smiling, happy mascot. So I don't know what that mascot's named, but there you go, sir. Thank you for the super chat, as always. We do appreciate those. Back to the comments. Same Iowa who won the East Division. That I'm not quite sure what your Iowa was in the West Division, Heartbreak 25. I'm not sure what you're trying to say.
Maybe ChatGPT is giving bad info. They still give me divisions every once in a while for the Big Ten and the SEC when you're asking for some research.
All right, Adam, here's the part in the show where I upset Florida State people. So please, Florida State people, make sure you time stamp this in your comments on why I'm wrong. It's 1 hour, 1 minute, and 43 seconds. If you're choosing Miami over Florida State, you are not really targeting the Florida market. Might as well chase Georgia Tech. Miami, again, I understand it's a private institution. It's a smaller school. They have a health system. The Big Ten likes universities with established health systems. I understand Florida State has a medical school, but they do not have a owned or operated hospital for their residents to go to. The University of Miami does. The University of Miami also does a lot of genomic research, which Michigan really takes into account. That pleases Michigan very much, and Michigan has a lot of power in the Big Ten. Miami also has an international airport. It's easier to travel in and out of, and it's a more of an international market, and the Big Ten wants to grab more of an international market. They're playing a game in Germany this year. They would probably like to play a game in the Caribbean at some point, Mexico at some point, somewhere in that Latin America market. Miami as an international city could be the gateway for them doing that. All right, Rock. Now I'll let you give your opinion.
I just want to say, all the rest of you guys, FSU fans in the chat, who I'm friends with, I'm like so holding back right now. I will leave this be in honor of relationships I have with others. I literally come on this show constantly and defend Florida State. I'm not dealing with the troll.
Okay. And I will say if Florida State joins the SEC and Miami joins the Big Ten, that should be a protected rivalry. I 100% agree with that. And Miami is private. They don't have to worry about that state politic issue with Florida. Kerry Gonol says Florida State should always play Miami. F a Gator.
Exactly.
LOL.
Yeah, I have way more respect for Florida State than I'll ever have for the Florida Gators.
Grateful Trojan had no Zubas, but I had skids. Were those the roller skating shoes that you could like pop the skates out of? I never had those.
I don't know. I think so.
Yeah, I didn't have those. Those I think were after my time. But I did have Zubas and a starter jacket. And you know, they don't look.
Can we put this up for a second? Now I'm gonna go off.
Okay.
What a crock of shit. First of all, Miami sold out all their tickets for the Final Four. They sell out all of their road game allocations, even when they're given 15 or 20,000 for the bigger games. The TV ratings say that you're wrong. Thank you for playing. I'm just going to troll the chat. Take care.
I'm trying to find a picture of Ohio State Zubas at the moment. They are very rare, apparently. Apparently, a lot of people at Ohio State got a good sense not to continue to wear them. But the 90s was a magical time, guys. I don't know how many 90s kids we have in here, but they were a magical time where you could wear Zubas in public, and people apparently just acted like this was normal to wear this kind of pants out in public. They also had shirts, I remember. And later on,
I remember the pattern for sure.
Right.
I remember the patterns. I just didn't know the brand because only leopards, only that kind of skin things I ever saw anyone wear was either on strip clubs or when Rocky was doing a commercial in Rocky 2 and couldn't do the script right.
Yeah, this is a pair of Ohio State Zubas. And I wish I still had my old pair because apparently they sell for mucho dinero. Bring back Zubas. Duke and KU, you would be interesting in the Big Ten. Absolutely. Hey, take on two. Listen, I brought it up on Friday. The Big Ten hasn't won a national championship in basketball since 2002.
Big Ten needs help in basketball, and I don't know if they care to have help, but, you know, on the men's side, baseball could use some help as the third or fourth sport on the men's side of the equation. On the other hand, volleyball, you know, when you have Nebraska there, it makes up for everybody for the women's side.
Yeah, when you can sell out a football stadium for women's volleyball,
freaking amazing, right?
That is amazing. Jimbo Fisher working on the ACC network seems like the dollar store version of Nick Saban. His voice is annoying, and he makes me tired listening to him. Apparently, Jimbo did an interview late last week where he said he was ready to get back to coaching.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually saw that, you know, a tweet about it today. So I don't know when he did the interview, but he definitely did that. Look, it'll be super interesting that the first time that road show winds up in Tallahassee.
You know what else will be interesting? John Gruden actually said that he wants to get back into coaching, and he wants to coach in the SEC badly. As far as SEC coaches on the hot seat, you got to think Sam Pittman at Arkansas is right up there. Does John Gruden work at Arkansas?
I think if you're Arkansas, if you're Mississippi State, if you don't want to give Levy more time, why wouldn't you make that kind of call just to, you know, it makes more sense to me than going after Belichick. Though he's a legendary coach just in terms of age, but then again, I could be wrong. For all I know, Gruden's older than I think that he is.
Numbskull News, good to see you, Numbskull News. Politics happen inside North Carolina. Absolutely true. They have never ever, and I've looked, used AI searches, I've done LexisNexis. I cannot find an instant where a board of governors of the state overruled the board of governors of a public university. That Santa Ono, Florida thing was the first time, at least in the modern record. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brock was Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft, and now he's getting paid. Good for Brock Purdy. And Trey Lance, they traded 3 first-round picks for him. I never understood that, but that's... Mullins Milliner has outdone himself, Rock Chalk Buckeye. Yes, I defended the Kansas Jayhawks. Talk to you. Talk to Bomber. They did not see that as a possibility, but I did.
I like Utes' public audition to be the next villain in the Marvel's universe.
Isabella Johansson. I don't think I've seen you around here before. Welcome, Isabella. If I was to add schools, go big or go home, add Texas and Texas A&M, add Florida State and or Miami, Florida and Georgia. Isabella, that would be great. Listen, if you're the Big Ten and that was a possibility, absolutely. Why would you say no to that? The problem is, I don't think anybody's leaving the SEC. I don't think anybody's leaving the Big Ten. I don't think you're going to be able to poach from those two conferences, but I think the Big Ten would take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Somebody would have to get super, super pissed in the SEC to think about leaving.
Chiefs Zubas are the classic because we're WT. I will let you guys figure out what WT means in that context. I'm not going to say it, even though me, myself, I am whiskey tango as it comes. Janus. Mo and many schools specialize in certain Olympic sports. Example, Penn State wrestling. Very true, Janus. But Penn State wrestling actually generates revenue for Penn State. It is a revenue generating sport. Most Olympic sports are not.
Yeah, there are definitely exceptions for sure. I assume
Absolutely.
Iowa wrestling generates revenue. Am I just making a guess there that's correct, or is that off?
What's that? I didn't catch that.
That Iowa wrestling would also generate revenue?
I would imagine Ohio State wrestling actually generates revenue. So wrestling programs in the Midwest are pretty important. I think I would imagine even the Oklahoma State wrestling program generates revenue for Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So
hey, when I was in the Northeast on Long Island, wrestling was huge back in the day as well, high school wise. Like, I probably went to go see more wrestling matches at the local high school that I didn't actually go to, but it was all my friends still went there, and then basketball games even.
Vox Quindaro says, sadly, both Road Warriors are both RIP. Absolutely. Sad to lose Hawk and Animal, but good news is Ohio State has James Laurinaitis, the little animal, as our LB coach. And maybe I'll end, if I can remember it, I'll end the show with an "Oh, what a rush" in tribute to the Road Warriors, one of the all-time great tag teams in professional wrestling. Tom Dubay says Utah is not a national brand in anything.
Well, they're becoming pretty nationally known for having fans that are definitely aggressive. Kuz was on the show with Ute and Bomber that we did on the Big 12 a couple of weeks ago over on the other channel, and basically said your fans are assholes. It was awesome. But it's better to be loved or hated than to be in the middle, right? Like,
yeah, be the villain.
People
embrace it. I embrace it. You only pay money to be in a conference if you suck and don't bring anything to the table. I think they bring something to the table. They do bring good basketball. They're bringing a lot of research dollars, but they're not North Carolina, and I think they're paying to be in the same league as North Carolina.
Well, here's the question. If everything else in college sports is getting more and more professionalized, like football, as an example, not all the way to the NFL, but if you want an expansion team or to get into essentially a conference in a league, you're paying to get your way in. Maybe that becomes more of the norm over time.
Our friend OBD Dunn says, yes, Wheatfield in the end zone was nice, but the whole damn thing looks great. Yeah. I love their stadium renovations. If you guys have time, go look at, if you haven't seen it yet, look at the stadium renovations for Kansas. The K in the stands, the big Wheatfield in the end zone. I think it looks fantastic. Kansas is as flat as Caitlin Clark. That might be true, but they do put road signs to stop you from falling asleep. Have you ever driven through Kansas before?
Once.
Rock? Okay.
I've been to Kansas a few times for meetings, but I did drive through it once to come across country.
Yeah. Very interesting. You see some very interesting signs, like in neon green and hunter orange, and definitely something very interesting to see. Nebraska is the same way. It is leader in legends, not anymore. We did away with that. Numbskull News says Miami Big Ten. Kerry Gonol says, I know for a fact that Florida State fans would rather play Miami than Florida. Or used to have a Facebook page to head over 15,000 football fans on it. I assume he's talking about the game itself. Morris Simmons says if Florida State goes to SEC, Miami will be off the schedule. There is no reason for us to Miami with the SEC schedule. Morris, unless the Big Ten and the SEC sign a scheduling agreement. And they both go to 9 conference games and have a cross-conference game for every team every year. In which case, Florida State, Miami would be the protected rivalry, in my opinion, because you could do Florida State, Florida as a conference game.
What part of college football is it that fans don't like rivalries? I literally don't get that crap. I don't get it. I don't understand that whatsoever, man. Like, I totally don't get it. Even if you have an SEC schedule, are you really excited about Mississippi State as one of those teams? Why wouldn't you just, in that case, swap Florida for your conference game that becomes a guaranteed protected and keep Miami as your out of conference, just reverse it? Most Florida State fans that I know of do not agree with that.
Daniel Gagag says, Mo and I had Steelers Zubas and starter jacket. Yes, 1991 was wild. Yeah. There were we certainly made some choices there in the early 90s, people. Numbskull News says, good Lord, those are ugly. They weren't cheap either. Those were expensive to get. And if you didn't have one of those, you weren't cool. If you didn't have those in the pump up basketball shoes from Reebok, you weren't cool, man. Ryan Willie says no Zubas. Gruden would work anywhere. I don't disagree. I think he probably would work anywhere. It's just he mentioned specifically the SEC OP.
He did.
I'm trying to think of job openings in the SEC that Gruden would fit. Maybe Arkansas, but I just don't know if he's going to be willing to take a job like in Arkansas.
Kentucky, but they can't afford to get out of it.
I still think Kentucky is going to get fired.
I'm not sure. I don't know if they can buy. I think they have an albatross contract, which is why the fan base is. I mean, the beginning of their schedule does not set up well for them, and I think their fans are very nervous about not being able to get the Tulane coach. But I also don't know if they have the money with that contract. They literally have to pay him out. We had a Kentucky person on our show this past week. They have to pay him the entire contract within like 30 days if they let him go. It's not even like payments over years and offsets. Like, they have to pay him it, all of the balance right away. And remember, he leveraged a new contract when they thought he might be getting the Texas A&M job.
Yeah, maybe the boosters are ready to step up. I don't know. Numbskull News says Michigan has the Steiners. They absolutely do. The Steiner brothers were both University of Michigan graduates. That's why I hate the Steiners. And they were the Road Warriors. They weren't. And let's be honest, the Steiners weren't even the Midnight Express, the greatest tag team in wrestling history. Let's see. We'll get a couple more here, and we're going to wrap it up. SEC, Auburn Tigers, Mizzou Tigers, LSU Tiger, Mississippi State Bulldog, and Georgia Bulldogs. Absolutely. Lots of Tigers. Could you imagine adding Clemson to that mix?
And then you'd have 2 Death Valleys.
Hard to fall asleep while chain smoking Tarletons and blasting Van Halen. Don't disagree. With the window down, preferably. Do you see Florida State preferring to go to the Big with Miami so it's a conference game and continue playing Florida as an out-of-conference end-of-the-year game? I think it's the opposite. I think Florida State – well, I think Florida State would prefer to go anywhere but the ACC. I think that's what we can say with certainty, but I think the opposite will probably happen, and it'll be Florida State in the SEC, Miami in the Big, cross-conference game, and then they'll continue to play Florida as a conference game every year.
Yeah, like the networks, no matter which way they go, I mean, this is just my opinion, obviously, but if a portion of this is about gathering rivalries for media and TV ratings, you don't take one of the pretty much acknowledged top 10 rivalries and make it end if you're trying to get bigger matchups and TV ratings for your network partners, whatever form that might be.
Jared Jones, this is blasphemy. Midnight Express, not the top two, Moen. The Midnight Express with Sweet Stan and Beautiful Bobby was the best tag team in professional wrestling history, along with Jim Cornette. Big Bubba is the bodyguard. I don't know how I can explain this to you guys. Their matches against the Rock and Roll Express were legendary. Matches against Tully and Arn were legendary. Their matches against the Road Warriors, legendary. Yeah. Ric Flair went to Minnesota for a quarter. That's absolutely true. Ric Flair did go to the University of Minnesota for an entire quarter. Amazing Blue says that would have been the Warriors, Moen. Again, the Warriors, great tag team, but come on, they could not keep up work rate wise with the Midnight Express. Numbskull News says horrible Steiner take. No, it's not. The Steiners were terrible. Terrible people. Jason O says Scott Steiner had the greatest promo of all time. Yes, the mathematics Steiner math promo, which is one of the most rambling, incoherent things I've seen since a guy, wearing newspaper as underwear in a McDonald's. Jim Cornette is a bona fide phenomenon. You're absolutely right. Ric Flair is a huge Gator fan. He's actually a huge Michigan fan, believe it or not. He's actually went up there and spoke with the team several times. Florida State and the SEC will be playing Florida, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Texas, Clemson, and etc.
Funny, Florida's been doing the same thing and still plays FSU.
Guys. Yeah. When you get these conferences this big, they're not going to be playing those two. They're not going to be playing Georgia every year. They're not going to be playing LSU every year. They're not going to be playing Alabama every year. They're not going to be playing Texas every year. Probably not going to be playing Clemson every year.
Everyone, point out right away, National College Football fans, do you remember more Florida State Florida games or more Miami Florida State games?
What is wide right, wide left? Those were both Florida State Miami games, right?
Yep. And there are other ones too that were, went in FSU's favor as well. There's like a decade where somebody going to the national championship game was basically dependent upon who won that game.
NWO was unmatched, black and white. That is okay. They weren't the Midnight Express, so no, Scott, he's fat. Scott Steiner, absolutely. Scott Steiner, who had a completely natural body build. Kerry Gunn says I used to have two Facebook pages. One was a Florida State fan page that had over 10,000 Florida State fans. It was 50-50 on who our most hated rival was between the University of Florida and the U. Jared Jones says Road Warriors and the Hart Foundation top two. Listen, I would love to have seen the Midnight Express versus the British Bulldogs before both the Bulldogs got jacked on steroids. That would be my top two. The British Bulldogs before they got jacked on steroids in the Midnight Express. Just me, though. Stormy Cyclone says, I haven't seen a wrestler like Sanderson. He would take a guy down, then let him up and take him down again. Win by technical fall over a lot. There have been some fantastic amateur wrestlers coming out of the Midwest. Let's see. Let's get one more comment in here, and we're going to wrap it up for the night. Amazing Blue says, the Golden Boy goes with Amazing Blue all day. Thank you for that, Amazing Blue. Good to see you, sir. All right, looks like you got a couple pictures pulled up here. You want to show them off here, Rock?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find quick pictures for everyone hasn't seen the Kansas renovations. Just pulled up a couple from out online. I think this has a better idea of where it's going, but I don't know if it covered every aspect of it, but they just did a really good job making it feel like a college stadium, not generic and boring.
Yeah, I love that wheat field design inside the Kansas end zone. I think that is fantastic. The Block K and the student section, that's very cool. Good job by
Rock
Kansas.
chalk.
I think rock chalk, in the seats right there. I think that's a fantastic job by Kansas. They did a wonderful job. Congratulations to Kansas fans.
It looks awesome lit for sure, right?
Oh, absolutely. It looks good. Looks good. All right, Rock, what's your last call for the night?
Everyone has a homework assignment. Go read every article on the top 10 rivalries in college football and see which Florida State one ranks higher on average in the minds of national people. I realize that Florida State is a huge rivalry in state to states institutions, but I already know the results of what your research will do. But I like playing all of your rivals. I like playing hard games. I don't care what it is. I'm excited that Miami's playing Florida State this year as usual, but also playing Notre Dame in Florida in the same season. I encourage schools to do that in the playoffs with 12 or 16 teams. That's probably actually an important thing to do.
Absolutely. We've got a loaded college football season this year. So many great matchups. Week 1, you've got Ohio State, Texas. You've got LSU, Clemson. I'm missing somebody there. I know.
Florida State, Alabama. Chance for Florida State, Alabama.
State, Alabama.
You got Miami, Notre Dame. You got the drama series that could be North Carolina, TCU. Syracuse plays Tennessee, which will be interesting for all the quarterback drama and changes at both schools. Lesser known, but still an interesting thing to see what happened with Tennessee's quarterback room. Just a few that I can remember off the top of my head. USC, UCLA. Utah, UCLA. See if Utah's as good as a lot of their fans are expecting, especially Ute.
Absolutely. And for my last call, I didn't forget. I'll give you a little Road Warriors tribute first. We'll do We'll do Hawk. We'll do and then we'll do what a rush. But the Midnight Express are still number 1. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight here on Mowing After Dark. It is good to see all these chat messages rolling in here. We love having the chat, being active, discussing, and putting everything out there. We will see you guys next Sunday. As a reminder, this Wednesday at 8 p.m. is the Big Ten season preview on the Take with myself, Nate, and Sergeant Pickles will be joining us. And then after that, you will be able to head over to CFB Express and see the Big Ten preview at CFB Express. What kind of guests do you have on over there?
We have an Ohio State guy. We got Jucks on Bucks, who also is, I think, doing some work for another publication. We have Cal. We have, I think, 3 other schools. So we do a round table rotating people in so we can cover things. We're still solidifying a few guests. We might even have a Rutgers guy on since we talked about him earlier. So, but definitely check out the Mafia Guys show. We'll be on after, and you can always watch us on demand after you stay live with this community that the Mafia Guys have built.
Absolutely. Just as a reminder before we go, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment here on the College Football Mafia channel. We appreciate it. I try to get to as many of them as I can, even the ones that are really mean. I get to them, as many of them as can. Make sure that you also visit at CFB Express. You can see it right under Rock and Rant's name there. Give them a like, a subscribe, and leave them some comments as well to help boost them in the algorithm. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We'll catch you next Sunday. Until then, have a fun week, guys, and peace out.